Good afternoon and good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel and CoffeeStream number 305. And it's Wednesday, which means it is a Wednesdays with Skep day, but it is also the first day of 2020. So happy New Year to everybody who watches, and I hope your year is a good one, and I really do appreciate you guys coming every day to watch and talk to me and share opinions and all that fun stuff. So, Skep and I are very grateful that you are here, and we are very happy to bring you a New Year's Day coffee stream. How are you doing, Skep?
Well, happy New Year to you, Blind Press. It's wonderful to be with here with you, and I'm looking forward to this year. It's going to be exciting when the United States, what with the election
Mm-hmm.
and the faux impeachment, the silliness that's going on in Congress right now. It promises some great theater, and that means nothing but good news for those of us who employ content on the YouTubes.
Exactly.
Public silliness is grist for our mill.
Yep.
So I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year. It's interesting because I went and saw Sticks, Hex, and Hammers video this morning. And you made an interesting comment, and I'm sorry about the dogs
That's
barking in the
okay.
back. We're dog sitting again.
They know
Uh,
that you're live. That's
yeah,
all.
exactly. Kill the burglar so Daddy doesn't have to get his gun out. Uh,
I'm live. Can you do this for me, dogs?
yes, absolutely. It's interesting. In fact, I'm just going to say this real quickly. I don't want to get divested off
No
into
worries.
the story, but white settlement is a stone's throw away from where I live. Well, it's not a stone's throw away, but it's like half an hour away from where I live. I used to live in Arlington, which is very, very close to Fort Worth, and I was 15 minutes away from white settlement. I have passed that church. You can see that church. You can see the road that church is on. And if you're careful, you can see the church from the freeway. I've passed that many times. I do. It's a church that used to be a lot bigger than what it is now,
Oh, okay.
and was very popular and somewhat famous in that part of Fort Worth. So the it, some brave pundits in Austin, especially in the Austin Statesman, I think it was, came out and said that they thought that it was awful that the church allowed parishioners to have guns in the service. That's supposed to be
Oh
a
my
place of
god.
worship. What are guns doing in a place of worship?
Okay, do these people not understand American history going
Well,
back to the days of family
yeah,
feuds when
exactly.
everybody was shooting each other except on Sundays when you just
That's
went to
that's
church and you
well,
leaned your shotgun up against the wall and
right. That's not exactly the story, though. The story is the reaction of people to those stories,
yeah.
to that commentary, and almost as one, Texans, people who live here, just rebelled against that. Said, "What the hell is the matter with you? How stupid, how invested in that point of view do you have to be?" I mean, they said it much more
Yeah.
crudely than I did.
Yeah.
Those people got flamed and flamed again. It was heartwarming to see the amount of support that guy Wilson has gotten from Texas, period. But his local community, obviously. I mean, they want him to run for mayor and shit of White Settlement. He's an absolute total celebrity up there, and he should be. He if you've I've watched that video, and I assume you've seen the video also. You know what happened in the video. Uh, from the time that the gunman stops shooting, the gunman is dead 3 seconds after he shoots his first shot.
Yeah.
That's how fast that happened. And what it was you think that it's just Wilson shooting him. Another guy shot him from across the church at
Nice.
exactly the same time, but the bang of their guns was so coincidental. It sounds like one
It
shot.
was almost
So it
simultaneous.
was literally simultaneous. As far as your ear can tell, it's simultaneous. And then evidently there's some controversy about whether or not somebody came up and shot him again while he was on the ground.
Who
But
cares?
that's yeah, it doesn't matter at this point. This is just making sure, right? Just a
It's
mercy
he's
shot,
following the rules of Zombieland.
right?
Double tap.
Exactly.
Always double tap.
Always double tap, but that actually comes from SEAL teams.
Mm.
The double tap is two in the head.
Yeah.
That's what they go for.
I actually have a follow-up story that we can read about later.
Okay, but
About why he did
so
it.
anyway,
yeah.
so I'm listening to Styx Hexenhammer this morning, and he makes this offhand comment that just really registered with me about the fact it's been 100 years since we've been in the 20s. And he said
true.
it's been a while, and now we're going to be using 2020. And 100 years ago was 1920, and he unfortunately, and this is a problem with Styx. He doesn't do anything with it. He makes an interesting comment like that, and he doesn't spur out on it at all. He'll just leave it hanging. I guess that's for lesser mortals like me to go after.
That's where you come in.
This is where I come in. So of course I spurred out on it, and I went over and went to a couple of different websites and started to pull up what was happening in 1920. And it's absolutely fascinating when you think about where we were in 1920. Okay, like the U.S. I'm going to read some of the headlines from 1920.
Sounds good.
You won't believe it. Interestingly enough, the population of the world, by the way, was 4.4 billion roughly
Wow.
in 1920. So we almost doubled
In 100 years.
the number of people in 100 years. The U.S. Department of Justice, Red Hunt, nets thousands of radicals. Aliens are deported. Tennessee passes the 19th Amendment, and women's suffrage is approved. Women will be able to vote in the presidential election for the very first time. It's
Wow.
The Constitution is amended, and the last state to do it was Tennessee.
Yep.
The Mexican president was assassinated that year, but the Treaty of Sevres, you haven't studied that since you had world civilization in high school, but that dissolved the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire actually existed up until 1920.
Yeah.
Factory worker Nicola Sacco and fish peddler Bartolomeo Vanzetti, Sacco and Vanzetti, are picked up by the police May 5th in connection with an April 15th murder and robbery in South Braintree, Massachusetts, for which the famous Sacco and Vanzetti case, they would eventually be electrocuted, both of them.
This is
for
so
that.
Cool. Just to look back in history.
Oh, it is. And a bomb explodes September 16th of 1920. A bomb explodes in the J.P. Morgan Bank building, killing 30 people and injuring 200. So these guys who say that terrorism didn't exist back then, they don't know what they're talking about. The anarchists back then, the communists back then, were actually doing active terrorism in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That is
the Bolsheviks.
The Bolshevik, and that is rewriting history by the lefty press. Where they say, "Well, this is the first time this ever." Bullshit! It is not the first time this has ever happened. Get out of town. This is the way small-minded people always want to get their way immediately. So there you go. The U.S. president was Woodrow Wilson.
Yep.
And the population of the United States, which currently is like 330 million, was 106 million. So we've tripled the population in the United States. Federal spending, wait till you hear this, the entire federal budget, okay, which is now basically $1 trillion, was $6.36 billion.
That's it?
That's it. That's all
she wrote. In 20s money, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but it's not $1 trillion.
No.
Unemployment was 5.2%. Okay, life was pretty good in the United States, and the cost of a first class stamp was 2 cents.
Holy crap!
Yeah. Let's see. Stanley Cup. Ottawa defeated Seattle for the Stanley Cup championship. The Wimbledon. Uh, the only thing that people might know is Bill Tilden won Wimbledon that year. The famous, and it turned out later they found out he was gay, and everybody was scandalized briefly. Let's see. Uh,
Check Your Logic says, I didn't know about that bombing. Yeah, it's the J.P. Morgan bombing.
Wait, this is 1920. Okay,
Yeah.
this is interesting. KDKA, a Pittsburgh Westinghouse station, transmits the first commercial radio broadcast.
Wow.
1920. That's the first commercial radio broadcast.
And look what we're doing.
Yeah.
100 years, just 100 years later, and look what we're doing.
Yep. Rising popular interest in African American literature sparks the beginning of the Harlem Renaissance, if you know anything about that. And speakeasies replaced saloons as the center of social activity. And those would eventually, speakeasies would eventually become the places of rebellion against the Prohibition Amendment, which was coming. Let's see. American chemist William Draper Harkins postulates the existence of a subatomic particle called the neutron, a heavy particle of no electric charge. We didn't even know what neutrons were back then.
That's insane.
Yep.
Einstein's theory of relativity hasn't even been a thing yet in the 20s, has it?
Yes, it has actually. Okay. Yeah, he published that in 1909.
Oh, did he?
Okay. Right around there. Yeah, and the thing was, people didn't know what to make of it. So the appreciation of it, you're kind of right in a way. They thought his paper on electrophysics was crazy talk. Was just math leading physics astray. Right. And they didn't understand his relativity or his quantum, paper. He basically published two papers that really got him going. In fact, I'll be a little bit more precise about that. Hang on one second. I'll just.
And everyone went, "This makes no sense. You must be insane."
God, this is funny on Google. When you Google Einstein, the first thing that comes up is Einstein bagels. That comes up before Albert Einstein. I think that's just stop me. I don't know what to say. Let's see. Near the beginning of his career. Okay, yeah, near the beginning of his career, Einstein thought that Newtonian mechanics was no longer enough to reconcile the laws of classical mechanics with the laws of the electromagnetic field. This led him to develop his special theory of relativity during his time at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern from 1902 to 1909. And he subsequently realized that the principle of relativity could be extended to gravitational field, published a paper on general relativity in 1916. I'm sorry, it was 1916. It was about 7 years later, but still before the 20s.
Yeah.
And he continued to deal with problems of statistical mechanics and quantum theory, which led to his explanations of particle theory and the motion of molecules. Let's see. And then he also investigated the thermal properties of light and quantum theory of radiation, the basis of the laser, which laid the foundation for the photon theory of light. In 1917, he applied the general theory of relativity to model the structure of the universe. That was the second big paper that he did. So it was 1916 and 1917 that he...
and everybody was like, "This makes no sense to us. You must be crazy."
Well, those were actually the ones that made him famous. In 1905, he called his it's referred to as his Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. He published 4 groundbreaking papers, which attracted the attention of the academic world. That year, at the age of 26, he was awarded a PhD by University of Zurich.
Okay.
And so, his super productive period was really between 1905 and 1930, basically. And that was the part.
And then he thought he made a mistake and kind of
Right,
beat him
right.
up.
Yeah, it's I've got to put in this Einsteinian constant, which turned out to be an even bigger mistake.
Yeah. Had he
So,
just
but anyway,
left it alone.
getting back to interesting stuff. It's interesting. Well, so 1920 is this really rich year. 1921, it's not so rich a year. When I look at major events, it's like Congress passes the Budget and Accounting Act. That's what they lead with, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh boy.
boring. Yeah, exactly. Of course, in 1921, the president is now Warren G. Harding,
Mm,
and the vice president is a guy named Calvin Coolidge, who would eventually become president.
president. Yeah.
And let's see. The U.S. Congress in a joint resolution declares World War One ended July 22nd, so that was only 4 years late. Uh, first
Well done,
burial.
guys.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so there's really not too much there. Interesting thing, you notice that the Stanley Cup is just completely dominated by Canada. Ottawa defeats Vancouver in the finals. Those
Yeah. Do you know? Do you want to know why so many American teams win the Stanley Cup now?
because all the Canadians moved down here.
Yup.
Yeah, yeah, it's still mostly Canadians. Yeah, yeah, the Canadian juniors. Well, let me tell you, I wasn't on the team part of Northwestern University had a hockey club, and I played hockey all through high school. I was a hockey guy, and so I would, but it was a club, which meant that everybody, there were several rinks, and everybody got to play, and there were different levels and so forth. And occasionally, I would play with the best guys and just get my ass creamed. It's exhausting. And I was a defenseman, and but we scrimmaged. I got to play on that team, and we scrimmaged some guys from Purdue, and these guys were all Canadian juniors. This was an NC2A team, and they just came
Okay.
down to scrimmage us,
Yeah.
and just for fun. It was just for shits and grins. And these guys skated so fast. Their passing was so precise. Their open ice checks were amazing. Their stick checks were amazing. Their skating skills were just so much better, and they were younger than we were. Most of them were freshmen at
Yeah.
Purdue, and so yeah, that was. I got to actually taste what that level of hockey was like at that. I eventually just stopped skating because I was just tired of. It just became a losing effort and made me feel bad about myself. That's actually true.
I miss skating. I haven't skated in years. It's actually one of the things that um one of the things that I can do that doesn't hurt my back that much.
Yeah, what it's great exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrific to do. That's interesting that you should say that. Years later, I was. It's a complicated series of events that I won't bother to explain. But anyway, I was part of a church group, and we had one of the people in the group was a lady who was blind, and we went ice skating several times in on a public rink, and she wanted to ice skate. And I remember the pastor saying, "Well, you can't really ice skate. I'd feel so terrible if you got hurt." And I said, "I'll take her out. I'm a pretty good skater, and I'll take her out." And I skated around with her all three times that we went out. She was just like my shadow,
Mm,
and she got surprisingly good at ice skating. She had a good sense of balance
yeah.
and didn't really have too much trouble with it at all.
And the
And she
great
was absolutely sightless, like you are,
the
sightless from
the
birth.
the best thing about skating, especially on an indoor rink,
Uh huh.
is
Which this was.
if you can hear your blades, the sound your blades make on the ice,
Yeah.
you can hear that you're getting close to the boards.
Wow.
So if
I
you
never even that has never occurred to me.
so what I used to do by like if I skated by myself, I would just skate around the outside
Uh huh.
and just do like laps. And it was just really fun to concentrate on listening to the blades of my skates going, by the boards,
And you can hear people ahead of
I
you.
can hear people ahead of me. I can hear people behind me. Um, all that fun. Like my grandma and I used to do public skates, and we would just, hold. I would just hold her arm, and we would just skate and talk. It was just skating is awesome. I love skating. I learned to skate on the Rideau Canal up
Oh
in Ottawa.
wow,
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
yeah.
I'd love to do some canal skating. Never,
My mom
never got
used
to
to
do that.
skate to school. She used to,
That
cause
would just be
you
awesome.
would what you would do is you would go down, and then you would, because we lived right near the Ottawa River,
Yeah,
and she would
she
skate
skated on a river
on
to
on
school.
on the canal down to, closer to her school, and then she would, go and walk to take off her skates and
Oh, that is
walk the
fun.
rest of the way.
That's just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I would love that. One of my favorite science fiction stories involved a thing about skating the canals of Mars.
Oh wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah, where they had these long straight canals of, it was I think it was supposedly dry ice or something, and they had special skates and that allowed them to go like 100 miles an hour. It just was a
Well,
great
you
story.
without gravity, you would, or with low gravity,
Yeah,
you would skate ridiculously fast.
and you could go 100 miles an hour because remember the Martian atmosphere is 1%
Yeah.
of our atmosphere, so it's almost like skating on the moon.
Yeah.
People think that Mars has this big atmosphere. It has 1% of our atmosphere. 1%.
That's why your blood could freeze and boil at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. You take off your spacesuit in Mars, you will die just as fast as you die in space.
Yep.
Same rate. And but anyway, getting back to this. So anyway, I promise not to torture you too much. So then I go to. So I said, well, let's see what's happening in 1924. 1924 is a much more interesting year. You have the death of Lenin. Stalin wins the power struggle and rules as Soviet dictator until his death in 1953. 1924 to 1953, 29 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 29 years of
29 years
murder.
of Stalin.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, yeah. Look, don't look out. 20 million people in Ukraine are just about to die. The Italian fascists murdered the socialist leader Giacomo Matteotti, and the Ottoman Empire officially ends in 1924. There's like 4 years of unrest in Turkey. It ends when Turkish President Mustafa Kemal ends the caliphate. So that was the end of the caliphate then. Um, let's see. New York's computer tabulating recording company, sound familiar? Is reorganized and now will be known as the International Business Machines Corporation, IBM.
IBM. Holy shit. It's
1924.
that old?
Yeah, it's that old. It really is. Interior Secretary Albert B. Fall and Oilman Harry Sinclair and Edward L. Doheny are charged with conspiracy and bribery in the Teapot Dome scandal. And this was the thing that Harding,
Mm.
had to, was what cost him the presidency.
Yeah.
And during this time, by the way, Calvin Coolidge was president, and there was no vice president in the United States.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was no vice president in the United States. The thing with Warren Harding leaving was all about the Teapot Dome, the Teapot Dome scandal, and the I was gonna say that uh, his yeah, in early June 23. See, I'm trying to
So
figure
was
out
it
how how it was that he um
was it
political
because
advisors.
Coolidge had to take over for Harding, that, or did he win an election? Did Coolidge win an election, or did he have to step up as vice president and become
Well,
president?
no, he died on July 27th, my son's birthday, 1923, a few hours after giving a speech at the University of Washington. Later that night, uh, he had called for a physician complaining of pain in the upper abdomen. He probably was having a heart attack,
Yeah.
and uh, they the doctors suspected a heart problem. They said he felt better the next day. The train rushed to San Francisco. They arrived on the morning of July 29th, and he insisted on walking from the train to the car, which rushed him to the Palace Hotel, where he suffered a relapse. Doctors found not only that his heart was having problems, but he had pneumonia.
Oh,
Uh, they they treated him with liquid caffeine and digitalis. Okay,
Jesus.
one good, one bad. Interesting.
You
He
have a
seemed to
heart
improve.
problem, so
Yeah. Well,
they
it
give
was
you.
just they thought it would stimulate the heart, which it does, but it does it in a very stressful way.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes it work harder. So, but the digitalis actually improves the oxygen consumption. So, it's kind of a weird combination. The caffeine bad, digitalis good. So, and let's see, at around 7:30 on August 2nd, he was reading a column review of a column man, a flattering article from the Saturday Evening Post, and his wife, I guess, paused to fluff his pillows, and he told her, "That's good. Go on. I want to read some more." And those were his last words.
Oh, damn.
And he died a few seconds later from a cerebral hemorrhage. So that's why he was dead by 1924. Coolidge had assumed the presidency.
Gotcha.
Okay, and life goes on. But Harding was an immensely corrupt man. He was a doofus actually, but he had corrupt friends, and his corrupt friends took advantage of
Oh,
the situation.
he was the patsy.
Yeah, he was the patsy. That's exactly what he was.
He
Was the
was,
patsy?
oh,
It's perfect.
let's get Warren to cover up for us. He's a
Right.
moron. He'll
Yeah.
just do whatever we tell him to.
Exactly. And so as a result, he gets a it, you know other presidents get tombs like in on the Potomac in Washington
Yeah.
D.C. He has a tomb, but it's in Marion, Ohio. So there you go. It's called the Harding Memorial, and it's actually kind of a local, little bit of hilarity.
Is
That
that where he's from?
Yeah,
Ohio?
he was
Or
from Ohio.
okay. So
Yeah,
they gave him a tomb in his home state.
basically yes.
Okay.
And so that was that. So that's why we had Calvin Coolidge that we spurred out on that. Let's see. I was going to say this was the Leopold. This was the year that Leopold and Loeb confessed to murdering their 14-year-old cousin in the interest of science. That's a quote. We killed him in the interest of science. Clarence Darrow is the defense lawyer, getting them life imprisonment instead of a death sentence. Okay.
Ah,
And
Clarence Darrow.
yeah, Leopold and Loeb was a famous case. So those were, you had Sacco Vanzetti 4 years before, and then Leopold and Loeb then. Let's see, federal spending was 2.91 billion. It's just amazing. It was a big cut from
Six
the
point six
1920.
billion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was the post-war stuff. They really cut it back. This was the years. This was the time when things got so austere in terms of federal spending. It was actually a bad thing. It started to really hurt the efficiency of the United States government. The consumer price index. Well, I'm not going to go into. Unemployment was 5%, and let's see, no change in the price of a first.
When did Prohibition start? 23? Or was it in the 30s? No, it wouldn't have been in the 30s.
Let's see. I can look that up a second. Hang on one second. Stanley Cup. Montreal defeated Vancouver again.
Go Montreal!
Yeah, Montreal kicked some ass. I mean, they were
Go
they were
Habs,
it.
go!
They were the stuff, and Notre Dame was the NC2A football champions. So anyway, Walt Disney creates his first cartoon, Alice's Wonderland,
Ah.
And Paul Whiteman introduces George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. And that was also the year, 1924, the first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Edwin Hubble demonstrates that spiral nebulae are composed of stars like our own galaxy. He literally uh, deduced a lot of that just on his own, just figured it out. He was a really brilliant guy.
Wasn't Hubble the reason that Einstein went, oh shit, I fucked up? Like one
It
of
was
Hubble's
there is
discoveries.
there is a connection there, and I don't. Um,
I think when Hubble proved, or when Hubble was able to definitively prove something, I can't remember what it was,
let's see.
but Hubble was able to definitively prove something, and Einstein kind of made the jump to, well, if that's right, then my theory of relativity must be wrong. And then I
Mm,
watched
it was.
I
It
watched so
was.
many documentaries on this stuff. It
Yep.
all kind of runs together.
I know it. It was this work on the Cepheid variables, but I can't remember what it was. It was because of the incorrect understanding of the Cepheids. This was so. Let's see. He became used the stars known as Cepheid to demonstrate that they lie far beyond the Milky Way because of an incorrect understanding of the Cepheids. This distance was vastly increased. Years later, he also suggested that the clusters of galaxies are distributed almost uniformly in all directions, although that's kind of been overturned. Okay, and then he was the first to offer observational evidence to support the theory of an expanding universe, presenting his findings
That's
in
it.
what is now known as Hubble's law. That was the
That
proof
was it.
that
The
got
expanding
Einstein's.
universe that
Yes,
made Einstein go, ah, shit.
yeah, of course it is. And you eventually that not only was the uh, expansion happening, but that the rate of expansion was increasing.
Yeah,
And not only was the rate of the expansion increasing, the rate of increase
was
of
increasing.
the expansion was increasing.
Yeah,
So the second order differential, to put it in calculus terms, was positive.
yeah.
Holy shit! That was a huge finding. So yeah, that was a big deal. Interesting. Yeah, cool that you remembered that to cross reference that.
Rolling Bear, go sit in the corner. It's not Leafs country. And by the way, at least my team has won. My team has won more Stanley Cups since Toronto has won their last one than Toronto has ever won. So,
There you go. In other news, the electrocardiogram was invented that year.
oh wow,
Yep.
cool.
And let's see. Um, the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, was awarded to John Hume and David Trimble, both from Northern Ireland, who made possible Northern Ireland's Good Friday Peace Accord in. Wait, that's wrong. All right. Wait. That's wrong. Excuse me. Hang on one sec. More. Oh, that's wrong. Why do they have that?
Because they suck.
Yeah, that's interesting. But anyway, I thought then we'll close this little piece out by going to 1930, the end of the 20s,
Mm,
and get a couple of headlines from there, and then we can branch out to other stories. So in 1930, by then, Britain, US, Japan, France, and Italy sign a naval disarmament treaty. And peace is going to last forever. Okay, war is over, no problem. Oh, a little known party in the German elections scored very significant gains, the National Socialists, I believe they were called that
mm.
year. Haile Selassie becomes emperor of Ethiopia, and he was Haile Selassie, extremely Selassie. His cousin had been deposed.
I
Anyway,
see.
the population by then was 4.378 billion, so we'd already notched up about a billion
Yeah.
in one decade. And
We had the stock market crash in 29.
Oh, yes. Unemployment soars, prompting President Hoover to appoint a commission for unemployment relief, which he was very reluctant to do.
Hmm.
Hoover's idea about the Depression, people just need to tighten their belts and work harder.
Says
Okay.
somebody who was given everything in his life.
Yeah, pretty, I mean, yeah, he'd worked hard in his life, but not like somebody who is trying to figure out how to feed hungry mouths at home and literally has no alternative. He lets his family go home or goes has to go steal bread.
Yeah.
So then the Hawley Smoot Tariff Act is passed by Congress. Okay, and the act brings retaliatory tariff acts from foreign brings relief for the act brings retaliatory tariff acts from foreign countries. U.S. foreign trade suffers a sharp decline and the depression intensifies.
Mm.
Okay, so basically, we impose tariffs on other countries,
And
and
they say,
other countries retaliated like hell, and the depression intensifies. And this is what I'm afraid that Trump is going to do.
yeah.
And New York Supreme Court Judge Joseph Crater withdraws all his money from the bank, sells his stock, and vanishes.
Hmm.
His fate is never learned.
Wow.
The famous disappearance of Judge Crater, and people used to say stuff like, as invisible as Judge Crater.
Mm.
They used to use that as a colloquial comparison. Let's see. Unemployment is up to 9%,
Ooh.
and the Stanley Cup, Montreal defeats Boston. Just killing it, Montreal. My God. They just had a lock on it. That was interesting.
Boston's a bunch of cheaters.
Yeah.
No, they play dirty as fuck.
Well,
Boston Bruins.
yeah, the
They
Bruins
they
always have been a
are
dirty
not.
club.
They are dirty, dirty players. They
Yeah,
cheat.
yeah,
Their refs are biased as hell.
yeah. They never get called for boarding, but other teams who board them, oh my God, they
If
call them in
you
an instant.
basically if you play if you play the Bruins at a home game,
Yeah,
um,
I agree with you. By the way, it's amazingly biased in the favor of the Bruins.
can you talk to chat real quick? My mother is calling me for someone.
Absolutely, no problem at all. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us.
Hey,
It's great to have you guys here and say hello to all the various people. I see Irate Prostate is there, Gunfox and Seamus are there. Good to see you guys. Check your logic. How you doing, bud? And see Rolling Bear. Hi. All you need is there. Very cool. All you need. How you doing? Kill Senators Go. Pink Owl is there. Nice to see you, bud. And let's see, anybody? Maniac Man, thank you for coming. Dax, hi. Good to see you, bud. Uh, and P Dog Night is there. Hey, man, how you doing, P Dog? Happy
Pink
New Year
Hollow,
to all
do
of you
you
guys, and really appreciate you guys joining us here for the Wednesday stream and ringing in the new year.
Pink Hollow, do you have Alex's? Do you have mittens for Alex? Cause Mom just found them in her car.
I guess we'll hear the answer in chat.
Yeah.
Chat is back. Maybe he'll DM you, so keep your eye out. So anyway, you had said that you had some stories yourself that
I
you want to
do.
cover. Anything in particular?
I do have some stories. So we've got um I'm sure you guys have seen this making the rounds. Um we've got the Pope, and we have a bit of a video. I'm not gonna. I'm sure you'll. If I play it, I don't even know if there's audio or not. But there's a video here. We've got Pope Francis. He's Why is it? Oh, look and
There you go. It's going.
okay. So the Pope is um the Pope is basically going to the Vatican
We
and
have to sit through an
an
ad
ad.
first.
Sorry
The
about that.
Windsor's CNN coming
Yeah,
in February. Thank you very much. Okay,
here
here's
we
the
go.
Pope. Pope is extending his hand, and He is waving to the crowd. He's happily, and this woman grabs his hand and yanks him over, and he finally whacks her on the hand, pulls his hand, and he has a hateful look on his face. He was greeting people on New Year's Day after the Vespers and evening prayer service,
Yeah.
and he wanted to pull his hand away, and the lady just reaches out, grabs his hand, and pulls the pontiff over, and he slaps her hand. Probably told her she's going to hell, and then he says, "Love makes us patient. So many times we lose patience. Even me. I apologize for yesterday's bad example." But he did make an apology today,
Oh God.
and
I'm just gonna close that. So that's just a little bit of there. The article just describes basically what happened. But what do you think, Skep? What do
I
you
think
think of?
I think that he's a piece of shit Argentinian. That I've known some Argentinians. They all have the same chip on their shoulder about their country is secretly greater than all other countries. It's just not reflected in any significant statistic at all. And that I think that he thinks he's a giant among ants, and he has the a very typical Argentinian superiority uh, con, uh, complex that and it's not just because he's an Argentinian. It's because he is a prick. He has been living in luxury at the expense of people living in real poverty for a very long time. Argentina has a very large poor population.
Yeah.
It is a country of haves and have-nots. It is an oligarchy basically that masquerades as a democracy, but you talk about a wealth gap. There is a class that has the money, and then there is a vast underclass, and that vast underclass are the ones who pray for things to get better and offer him money, and that's the money that he lives on. He's a I'm sorry, I don't like the Pope. I don't like this Pope. There are popes that I have liked, but this is not one I like.
I
He's
kind
an
of agree
evil
with
man.
Faithless. Faithless says the Pope is a piece of shit for many reasons, but knocking off a graspy Klingeron is not one of them. I think I think you're even if you're the Pope and you're waving to somebody like waving to the crowd to try and bless them and acknowledge them or whatever. I think um the people don't necessarily have to be grabbing and pulling on him
No
either.
doubt about that. I'll concede that immediately. Here's where I have a problem with what he did in terms of yanking his hand back and even being a little bit upset. I can understand that completely.
Yeah.
The slap on her hands was gratuitous and hateful, and that is a quick insight into his soul right
Mhm.
there. Was the fact that he hit somebody over that, and that was wrong, and he knew it was wrong. He apologized because it was bad PR. He
Yeah.
doesn't really care, but believe me when I tell you, he doesn't really care. But he, as far as I'm concerned, he's an evil man.
He plays lip service to, oh, we need to
Love each other
support
and
the
live together
poor
and
and
blah
love
blah
each
blah.
other and oh, gay people are in God's image too. Like I love like he says that this all this stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
but I don't actually believe it. Like I would believe if John Paul were alive, for example.
yeah,
John Paul II,
yeah. Well, John Paul II would have stood there and lectured the woman on the importance of
he would
personal
have.
space, and would have
But
given
I mean like
her an academic lecture.
John Paul most likely would have said the same thing about gay people, but actually meant it.
Yeah, exactly. He would have been sincere, and I'm with you 100%. And that lady was absolutely in the wrong
Oh
to
yeah,
grab him. That was the wrong thing to do. That was stupid, and if you did that with the U.S. president, it might get you killed.
yeah. Secret Service wouldn't.
They really don't. They don't play around.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised the Swiss Guard didn't
Yeah,
step in.
They it just,
Or was it
you know,
so fast that?
it was happened so fast, and he was kind of on his own. I
Oh,
guess they
okay.
thought they were in a very friendly space, and that was just something very weird. And I can also understand that he'd be kind of freaked out. The adrenaline goes up. Hey, is this an assassination attempt?
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. I still don't. I can't justify the punitive hitting.
No.
That to me, no, that's coming from a punishment place. That's coming from all the things that are wrong with the Catholic Church, in my opinion, where they just uh, the Catholic nuns and the priests are there to torture the little children in school, and make them hate everything like they do, like they themselves do, hate all worldly things. And that's actually the problem that I have with the Christian faith generally, is that it ultimately, to me, is a very negative faith
Mm-hmm.
in terms of saying that this life is nothing and that the next life is everything.
Yeah.
And I just disagree with that. I believe this life is important. I don't know what the next life is going to be. I don't know how it's going to work. I happen to think that it's probably not going to be a literal physical place with streets of gold and
No.
walls of jasper. But if anything, some essence of ourself passes on, but it's probably not anything like the existence that we experience today.
Mm.
And I certainly don't believe in a hell, where people, because they have not been introduced to Christ, are tortured forever, which
Yeah.
is the belief of the Baptist faith. So that's why I had to say I'm not really a Baptist anymore. I'm not really, but you know, a decent Christian in terms of that. I just end up being sort of a, I hope there's a God.
Mm.
I hope he's nice, but I don't really know anything for certain.
Yeah.
So if that's agnosticism, then let us make the most of it.
So here we have a story that says that Kim Jong Un says that North Korea is ending the test moratoriums.
Yep.
And he says that they have no grounds to continue on with the moratorium.
And Donald Trump said that he is going to be ending the North Korea survival moratorium.
So what does that mean?
He's going to nuke them. I'm just teasing. Uh, yeah, I think that he's I think that uh, Kim is feeling his oats, and
Yeah.
yeah, he says, "I want to make big bangs again,"
Mm-hmm.
and he's feeling like, well, let's see what they do if we, let's see what we can get away with. And to him, I actually think it probably feels like a game,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you, it does not feel that way to Donald Trump, and does not feel that way to the good people, the realists, the people who understand real politic in the State Department, not the Obama
Well,
creeps.
the thing with Kim is that his he was well, look at his dad, right? The
Yeah,
way he was raised, it is like a game to him because they're so isolated and insular about everything that everything outside of North Korea is really surreal to everybody there. Like, nobody really knows in North Korea what happens outside of North Korea.
that's the truth.
So, for Kim Jong Un, this is a game to him
Yes. Yep.
because, like, logically, he knows that other countries exist, like consciously,
Oh yeah, Kim.
but but like as a like does he put any of those countries or even the people he rules over on the same level as himself, human wise? Hell no. So it's just a game to him. Like, It doesn't matter. Those lives are superfluous to him.
I agree. Uh, I don't think that he thinks. I I think that he believes that real retaliation against North Korea is impossible,
Yeah.
and he may even have had some private assurances from China that they will back him.
Do you
But
think
here's
China will back North
no,
Korea no matter
not
what
not
they
at all.
do?
I
Yeah.
think they would say that to him just to make trouble,
Hmm.
but it because they know that the United States is not going to nuke him. But what the United States will do, we have many arrows in our quiver.
Yes.
Okay, we can drop 500-pound smart bombs and hit a mosquito on a rose bush. Okay, with those, and that means that we can surgically do anything we want to. And air superiority, sorry,
Yeah.
the MiG 19s and MiG 21s that Kim has are three generations in back of the hardware he's going to be confronted with,
Yeah.
and they won't even be able to see our airplanes. They won't even be able to see the F-35s on the camera, and the F-15s they won't be able to catch.
No.
And so, aside from just an amazingly lucky hit with one of their SAM threes, they have SA3s. That's all that they have in their aero core, and we will just. That's the other thing is as soon as they turn on their targeting radar, they're going to receive a whole bunch of Hellfire missiles, from somebody an
Yeah.
A6 or an F-117
Yeah.
that that they can't catch or do anything about either. So that they're gonna be in six worlds of trouble if they try and fight us.
It's like that. It's like that TNG episode where their Enterprise gets targeted by this old ass ship that has lasers,
Right,
not phasers,
right.
and, and it
Appear to be
takes.
lasers.
Yeah, they appear to be targeting us with lasers, and
Yeah,
Worf is
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
right.
And
That's
he
what this is like. This is,
rolls his eyes. Yes,
yeah.
for that.
This, like the North Korea does something, the States comes in and goes, yeah, hi.
Yeah,
You were saying,
yeah, exactly. So
um, yeah, I agree with you. I think China is like, yeah, yeah, we got your back. Yeah, it's fine. You go ahead.
yeah,
You
and
know,
then
it's
they'll say, "Well, we didn't mean that.
yeah.
We didn't mean you should do that." You're yo, man.
It's like that. It's like China is the main bully,
Yes,
right? That doesn't do much, right? But it gets all of its stupid cronies to do stupid things. And then when the US retaliates, China's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. For the blind people watching, I'm doing the washing hands motion.
yes,
It's just,
yeah. No, hey, I don't even know this guy.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know who he
it
is.
says he's my friend. I've never met. I've never
Yeah,
even seen him.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you guys do what you want to with him.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know who he's talking about.
But you
But
said, but you said. I mean, yeah, and so Kim is going to get his ass kicked if he
yeah,
really tries anything. I think this is more about whipping up his population and showing them how mighty he is and how he'll stand up to the United States. He's the only person in the world. That's his shtick, by the way, to his people, is that he is the only leader in the world who will stand up to the United States.
yeah.
He even will say things to the effect that China won't stand up to him. China's in bed with him, but I will
Oh
stand up
boy.
to him. So we don't trade with the United States. Life's pretty good here, isn't it? As they eat their quarter of a boiled potato, which is their day's ration. You know, it's interesting to spurg out a little bit on this for a second. I watched a couple of videos of people visiting North Korea. They all say they all have one observation, one after the other. They all make this comment: "Where are the fat people?
Mm,
There are no fat people in North Korea. None." Not one. It's not. It's not that they're rare. They are non-existent. Nobody, and I mean nobody, save Kim, is getting enough to eat. You notice that he's the only fat guy in the room. I looked at a room of his generals. His generals were taking notes in a thing that was released by uh, the uh, the North Koreans. And to tell you what a spur guy was, I was actually going through there and trying to figure out how many of them were right-handed to see if there were any left-handed generals because it's considered to be a terrible thing in North Korea to be left-handed, and
Really?
kids who are naturally left-handed are schooled out of that brutally, and even killed for being left-handed.
So,
Yes, in some rural parts of North Korea.
so they've
And
taken the nuns thing to the
I looked at
extreme.
like 40 of these generals who were all taking notes as Kim was dictating,
Yeah.
and they were all writing with their right hand. You would
Wow.
expect at least with Orientals, the percentage of left-handers is actually higher than among Occidentals. So you
Hmm.
would expect 13 to 15%, basically 1 out of 8
Yeah.
uh, people to be left-handed. There was not one in that room who was left-handed. Not one. I looked at every one of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what it's like to be me. Anyway, so the uh, the you would expect to see some fat people someplace in North Korea. No, no place. It's like the post-apocalyptic diet.
Wow.
There's no weight loss plan like it. It's forced dieting, and people eat their pets in North Korea, and they eat their pets. It's a treat. It's a
Hmm.
special treat because you get to have meat with your boiled potatoes. It's basically what they're surviving on is boiled potatoes and rice. And everybody is deficient. Everybody has intestinal parasites. The people who escape, they all have parasites.
Yeah.
It's it's just a nightmare country. And Kim needs killing.
Mm.
I'm just going to say that right now. Kim Il Jung needs to be shot in the face repeatedly until it stops twitching.
Triple
Straight
tap
up.
for him.
Yeah, fuck off, Susan. I'm saying it. It needs killing. I wanted to say something about that Cynical Lindsay brought up in uh, chat. It was a really good point. It was something that I meant to branch off into when we were talking about the Catholic Church. She said, after the complicit actions of the higher ups in the Catholic Church over priests molesting children in caps, which it should be, I could never convert to Catholicism. I'd feel absolute shame.
Hmm.
Not that I would convert anyway. I'm an anti-theist, and I'm with you 100%. Anybody who would associate with that religion they have to morally deal with the fact that the people who are promulgating and preaching that religion have an extremely high percentage of them are child molesters.
Yeah.
That's sick and it's wrong. And not only that, it's tolerated by the higher ups in the church.
Yes.
It's something necessary, don't you see?
Mm.
We're just making the lasses and laddies feel good. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Eat
Exactly.
shit and die. You're ruining those children. You're giving them uh, mental disorders and emotional disorders that last for the rest of their lives. Go to hell. If there
Exactly.
if there is a hell, you deserve to belong there. And I you know I can't stand that.
So do you want to
Um,
hear about kids
yeah, I have
like who bounce?
one other comment to make
Sure.
before we move on because I've been meaning to make it this whole time. If you notice that Blind Press has a most excellent icon up in the upper right hand part of the screen, and it's the hate tornado that Farzusmi drew for her. One of the we have so many talented people in Minions.
We do.
We're a blessing of musical and artistic talent, and some people are both musically and artistically talented. I just I just love that hate tornado,
I do
and
too.
those of you who don't know the story, Blind Press got called a hate tornado online in a tweet for being reasonable, and we just all loved it so much that we decided that that should be
A
uh,
thing.
a thing, and so
Yes.
that's now her thing, the hate tornado.
A
I just
a
love that.
a what was it? Let's see. An ableist, right-wing, anti-abortion, slut-shaming, sex assault excusing hate tornado.
That's it.
That's what I was. That's what I am.
That's what you are, and a proud one,
Kind of.
and
That's right.
Far drew a beautiful. It's this tornado with Blind Press's head coming out of it, really beautifully drawn, just beautifully done, and it's that's just an exceptional piece
It's
of work. So
awesome.
anyway, I wanted to draw attention to that, and it also has the word hate, you know, and it's
I
all
sh-
through it.
I showed it to my little sister, and she said, "Oh, that's amazing!" And then we both started. I don't know if you've ever watched the Jim Carrey Grinch Who Stole Christmas,
Yes, I have.
but
I have.
there's a scene where he's going through the phone book of Whoville, and at the end he goes, "Hate, hate, 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 double hate,
Yes, yes.
loathe entirely." we both did that.
I love that. That's wonderful. That is, so anyway, you had something else.
So this story is about a kid who bounced.
Oh,
Um,
plug the Mount Hood kid.
yeah, yeah. So this kid was climbing Mount Hood. He fell 500 feet and survived. So Mount Hood's in Oregon. I wonder how old this kid is. So it says, oh, 16. A 16-year-old climber has survived with only a leg injury after falling more than 500 feet on Mount Hood, or Oregon's Mount Hood. The teen was climbing with a group Monday morning when he plunged into an area of the mountain called Devil's Kitchen, which is about 10,500 feet up near the peak summit, police say. Wow. This is a
Man,
mountain. It's a technical mountain. This isn't a Sunday stroll, Lieutenant Brian Jensen of the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office told Q13 Fox. It's inherently dangerous, and going up there, you need to have the proper skill set and the proper equipment to do so safely. Doing so with anything less than doing so with anything less than that can be dangerous. Clackamas Sheriff. Oh, there's the tweet. Um, so it's telling you which hospital he's going to. Patients should arrive there in approximately 20 minutes. They're live streaming they live streamed it. So it says rescue crews took 4 hours to get to the location where the teen fell. Wow. 4 hours. So he was down there for 4 hours?
yeah, yeah. They actually have the video of it,
Wow.
and I'm checking out this vid. It's probably going to take forever
So
to
they
load.
gave
So
him urgent care immediately, splinting the climber's leg. The temperatures on the mountain during the time were in the mid 30s. Holy shit. So
yeah,
almost zero, almost freezing.
yeah, pretty much. Very cold.
Yeah.
You will die in those temperatures, especially being immobile, and
In
so that's a
shock.
bad scene.
Because,
But
like, you could get in severe shock. Like, if you've. Just
okay,
the
there they
pain.
are. There's skiers and hikers bringing him down on one of those things like an injured skier comes down on,
Gotcha.
and it's actually at night at this point, or deep twilight, almost night. very very dark. And they're just hauling him. They bring him off the base of the mountain, and two guys pulling him, and they're loading him into an ambulance,
He's
and
really
off he
lucky.
goes. Holy cow!
He is so lucky he didn't die.
And then yeah, and then the rest of it is just interviews and the like, you know.
What a way to start your new year. What did you
Gee,
do over the holidays, little Billy?
yeah,
I almost died.
right. Uh, I fell
Oh man.
500 feet and survived. You know, I have a feeling that what he did basically was he didn't fall really. He
Mm,
slid. I
yeah.
actually had a I was climbing a 14,000 foot mountain in Mount. It's called Quandary Peak in
Okay.
Colorado, and it's considered a pretty easy, you know, almost a hike. There's almost no technical uh, uh, climbing at all. And I was a very avid rock climber when I was doing this. I was no problem with fairly technical stuff, and so it was basically a hike. I got to the top and it suddenly started to cloud up. And when that happens, you know to get off the top of the mountain because it's lightning time. You're gonna get lightning strikes. There's a lot of energy in those clouds,
Right.
and a lot of people get killed on top of 14ers in Colorado because they don't get off the mountain. So I was in a hurry to get off the mountain, and I got off the trail, and I basically uh, headed to the northwest side of the mountain, and it was one of those things where the fog was so thick, you basically see about 3 yards ahead of you. It was like being in a cloud.
Oh wow.
I've actually been in a cloud. I actually skydived through a cloud. It was like very much like being in a cloud. And so as I went down, I lost my footing. I rolled my ankle. Is basically what happened. I was lucky I didn't break my ankle. And then and I slid 400 or 500 feet
Oh wow.
down the mountain on my back. And the thing that saved me, I was about to go off a cliff that had about a 200-foot free fall,
Oh
200 foot
boy.
sheer face, and I managed to guide myself over. So I got caught up in a cairn of rocks, kind of a rock pile, and I was holding on to this rock pile, and I was able to haul myself up, get myself situated, and then I was able to do a very technical descent down that cliff face while it was daylight was starting to fade and it was getting cold, and I realized, God, I don't even have a cell phone. I am well and truly fucked if I don't get off this mountain. And
And then when you got off, how long did you just sit there and go?
I when I so when I got to the base, I was on the wrong side of the mountain
Oh
from my car,
no.
and I was too exhausted to climb over the spur and shorten it. So I had a 5 mile walk to my car,
Oh
to my truck. When I got to my truck, I just lay down in the back seat. Yeah, I had a crew cab.
yeah.
I lay down in the back seat and just, you know, thank you, Keck, for preserving me. I didn't even have really conscious thoughts for it. I slept for about 40 minutes back
Yeah.
there, and I heard people walking around outside, and I thought, well, I look like I'm a bum living in my car. And I was sufficiently recovered to drive the 2 hours back to my apartment and get myself put back together.
I'm okay. I just almost fell off the mountain. It's
Well, the thing was, I got back at 9 o'clock at night. I had to pack and get ready for a 7 a.m. flight out of DIA
oh
uh,
god.
to Oakland, California. Yeah, the next morning. So for on a consulting trip. So when I got to Oakland, I was so tired I was shaking.
I don't blame you. Holy moly.
Oh, them was the days. So
So
anyway, there you
I've
go.
got a bit of a follow up because you were talking about the Texas the gunman.
Yes, yes.
So this this lovely piece of crap.
I'm
Um,
going to have to mute for a second, but I'm still
no
listening.
worries. So this wonderful person, the Texas gunman, headline here says, hold on, let me just get to the correct spot here. Texas church shooting gunman grew angry at passed over money requests. Visited multiple times, minister says. Wow. Okay. So this is all because the church didn't give him money? Seriously? This is what this was all about? He didn't receive the correct charity from the church? Wow. Okay. Climbing while stoned isn't technical rock climbing. Oh, that's too funny. So this says worshippers returned to the scene of the deadly shooting to honor the victims. Okay, so this is the picture of the congregations. The man behind the deadly church shooting in Texas on Sunday had visited the congregation several times before, according to the church's senior minister, who noted the man received food but would get angry when he wasn't given cash. So, I told you I'd melt your brain, says Gun Fox. Yeah, yeah. So this asshole was given food but not cash. So I guess let's go shoot up the church. The Texas Department of Public Safety on Monday identified the attacker as 43-year-old somebody whose name I'm not going to mention because fuck him, wearing a fake beard, a
Amen.
wig, a hat, and a long coat. Came and opened fire in the West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement and killed Richard White and Anton Tony Wallace. So this asshole this whole thing started because he was mad at the church because they gave him food and not money on his previous visits.
Jesus.
This whole shooting was because he received the wrong type of charity.
Right.
He wanted money, not food.
Right. As
I mean,
authorities said, Fuckhead's motive remained under investigation. The church's senior minister, Britt Farmer, told the Christian Chronicle he recognized the 43-year-old after seeing a photo of him without the disguise. That is bullshit.
Yeah, because the minister said he had come multiple times before and had been given food and would get angry when he wasn't given cash.
Yeah.
So this whole mess was over not being given charity or the right kind of charity.
And I don't, I think it's terrible that he uh, had mental problems, but unlike other people, that doesn't excuse him from this.
No.
To me, he remains responsible. He remains culpable, and he got what he deserved. But those people who got shot did not deserve that.
No.
That is just so wrong. He had a lengthy criminal history, including several arrests in North Texas and other states. He was arrested for carrying illegal weapons, and then after his arrest for carrying illegal weapons, he was under a court order not to ever have a weapon. He was wandering around North Fort Worth with a shotgun, so they arrested him again for that. I mean, it's not uncommon to see. We have open carry in Texas. Yeah. You can walk around with a gun in a holster. It's not a big deal, and we see people like that all the time. I see them at Walmart all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm that guy. Sometimes I walk around with my 9mm in my holster. it's not a huge deal. But you uh, we've you know they said we've helped him on several occasions with food. He gets mad when we won't give him cash. He's been here on multiple occasions, and yeah, I love the way the guy who died in the shooter who died in the shooting had a lengthy criminal history. But I wish they would give what that history was.
Yeah.
This guy did not need to be on the streets. I mean, and that's the other thing is we probably do need to bring back the system of asylums.
Mm.
A way of having um, a place for people who are well and truly crazy to go. That's not prison.
Especially now that we are getting better at treating mental illness. It's
Yes.
not like opening an asylum would be reopening the ice pick lobotomy store, right? Like the asylums in theory would and should be held to the ethical standards of mental health and medical care, right? This is
Yeah.
not like when people freak out about people saying oh we should reopen the asylums. Oh, ice pick lobotomies and electroshock therapy and blah blah blah. It's like
Now,
yes, that stuff was bad.
yes, we're not doing that
However,
anymore.
we're not doing that anymore. And if you are using, it's now called electroconvulsive therapy. It is not the same as it used to be.
Well, first of all, it's done under anesthesia.
It is, yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, you don't even know that you've had it
No,
until you wake up and you're not as depressed.
yeah.
So that's actually been a
It's yeah.
miraculous thing for some people.
Yeah. It has. Like it, opening asylums would not be anywhere nearly as bad as like because asylums as they were bad.
Yep.
Like there was a lot of abuse going on. There was a lot of um this was when psychiatry was still becoming recognized as a science.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of doctors who were better suited to lab work than patient work, mucking around with people. And I don't think you would have that same issue now.
No, I agree. Things are different. Information levels are different.
Yeah.
I say that, and yet we can't even control uh, 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 Epstein not getting killed in prison. So maybe it's not as controllable as I think. I don't know. I'm almost of two minds about that. Uh, we we should have. I mean, uh, Epstein did not kill himself. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Mm.
And the fact that the uh, tapes that were made of his cell that night have disappeared. That's just further supports the idea of a conspiracy
Yeah.
surrounding that, and the fact that that can happen in the Manhattan Correctional Center. Okay, you would think it would not happen there. It
Yeah.
turns out that place is a hellhole that badly needs reforming. And if you can have that in Manhattan, then anytime you take people's freedom away, it's got to be fairly serious. That's actually one of the reasons why for people who are habitual criminals who just steal and rape and kill and so forth.
Yeah.
I have the idea that it's two and done, or possibly three and done, and meaning that you're humanely executed
Yeah.
when you get caught for the third time. That's it. We're just going to put you down because there's no point in what is the point of all the people we have in prison right now? We have the largest prison population of any country in the world. Why are we
Basic,
doing that?
basically, right now, prison is criminal school.
Criminal school. It's a toilet. It's a human cesspool.
You go to prison, you learn how to commit more crimes.
exactly. I
You come out of prison, you put that shit to practice. You go
if
back to prison.
if you killed every single inmate in every prison in the United States, tell me what we would be missing. Criminals. That's all.
Speaking of criminals, do you remember the South Park episode? I don't know if you've got into South Park, but they had
I love South Park. Yes.
so there the episode where they made fun of Pokemon, and
Yes.
the kids got hooked on Pokemon, and they were trying to get them out of it with toys like Alabama Man. Well, let me tell you about Alabama Man. Because I have an Alabama Man story here,
Okay.
which will be a good one to end the stream off because it's funny.
Okay.
Alabama Man caught with meth and heroin asked for photo with arresting deputies. Because, when you're
What?
arrested, you want a selfie with your arresting officers. So it says an Alabama man who was found to be in possession of meth and heroin during his arrest on Saturday had an unusual request for the arresting officers to take a photo with them. Heath Swafford, 24, was arrested by deputies with the Morgan County Sheriff's Office, MCSO, after a foot chase in the Lower Dry Creek Road in the Three Springs community, according to a statement from the Sheriff's Office. In an unusual turn, Swafford requested a photo with the arresting deputies, the Sheriff's Office said.
Did they
And
comply?
there's the picture.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Swafford was found to have been carrying an amount of heroin and meth, the sheriff's office said. Deputies later discovered a stolen motorcycle at his residence, they said.
Alabama Man.
Alabama Man!
If you remember, Alabama Man was the toy can bowl, chew tobacco, and drink alcohol, and his action button can be used to hit his wife. A
Yep.
figure sold separately. That's a great ending one. I love that. That's absolutely hilarious. Oh man, Alabama Man. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
As soon as I saw that article, that
That's great.
title,
That's
I just
great.
went, Alabama Man!
Alabama Man.
Oh my god.
Oh, we do have some fun here. Thank you
That
guys
was
for coming out and listening to us this morning here on your Happy New Year stream.
yes.
I've had fun. I hope you've had fun.
I had loads of fun, and now I have to go and make sure Logan has a nap because we're going to my grandmother's house. We didn't end up going to her place for Christmas last week. Actually, nobody did, so we're just doing Christmas on New Year's today
No,
at Grandma's place.
you do that.
So
Yeah, you do that with kids. And by
yeah.
the way, I would make a fine prime minister of Texas. Thank you very much, Costa. But anyway, seriously, thank you guys for coming out and spending part of your day with us. We enjoy this. My friend Blind Press and I enjoy streaming together, and but we ultimately we do it for you, and never take you for granted. You guys have a happy New Year, safe and prosperous one.
Yes, thank you for watching. Be sure to come back tomorrow at noon for the coffee stream and meet us at Minions of the Zoo tomorrow night with Prospero.
Yes.
I'm gonna do a call-in day this Friday because last Friday was the last day of the month, but everybody was super busy or the last Friday of the month, everybody was super busy with holiday stuff.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do Friday call-in day this week instead.
Hooray.
So.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well, my friend, and everybody else. Have a good day. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you later.
Bye, everybody.
It would help if I hit the end broadcast button.